I wanted to show you how to navigate your way around the ribbon, which is really how you use a lot of things in PowerPoint. And there's just a lot of options, and we'll just briefly cover them by name so that you know that they're there and available. We'll take a look at Designer. Designer is one of the tools that's included with the Microsoft 365 subscription to the Office tools. That includes a Designer, which is an AI tool that will enhance your design from just something very simple. We'll take a look at arranging shapes and objects because some people brought that up, and that's one of the nice things about PowerPoint. It gives you a lot of tools to arrange things on your slide. We'll take a look at some simple animations. There's a lot of animation tools that can help you with your slide. And then we will, if we have time, we'll take a look at something called transitions, which is when you go from one slide to another. Most of the time people do a cut transition. It comes from video editing where you go from one slide and you bring up another slide. That's what I'm actually doing in this presentation. So when I bring up another slide, it just is considered a cut. So I'm going to switch over to my Windows screen here for a minute and bring up PowerPoint on Windows. Now I'm already logged into Windows. I'm already logged into my PowerPoint. And when you look at PowerPoint, there's some navigation on the left. There's a blank presentation, which is always a good way to start. But there are themes that are available in PowerPoint. And with the 365 subscription, you'll have a lot of themes. These themes will give you a format and a type font and a color scheme that are really, really helpful. And there's literally hundreds and hundreds of themes that are available. If we click on more themes, you can see there's just tremendous ones that are available. Now, PowerPoint is used as a tool to help make a presentation. And a presentation is anything you would do to present a story, an idea, a concept to one or more people. And so a difference between doing a slide presentation and using, say, a Word document is that Word documents tend to be things that people read, whereas PowerPoint tend to be things that someone presents. PowerPoint doesn't export to Slides or Keynote, but you can import PowerPoint into Slides and Keynote. Your color scheme, your design, your layouts will be very, very similar. There might be some changes in fonts because fonts are not always compatible between them, but that would probably be the only minor difference between them. You wouldn't be able to edit the theme in those, but you could change other things like your backgrounds or others. So Keynote has themes, Slides has themes, but PowerPoint tends to have the largest number of themes that are available. So one of the first things I do in PowerPoint is I save my presentation. Because I'm using Microsoft 365, and if you use OneDrive in the cloud, you'll have an autosave button up here in the upper left-hand corner. So we're going to turn it on, and I actually have two OneDrive accounts. I'm going to save this in my personal one, which is where I tend to do things, and I'll call it Tech Topic PowerPoint, and it'll be saved in OneDrive. Now, what it will do, it will automatically save changes as I make them. So I don't have to worry about my machine crashing, or if I forget to do something, it's automatically going to save these changes. And because the PowerPoint slide is in OneDrive, I can access it from any other device I have connected to my Microsoft 365 account. Now, as you can see, we've got a menu here. We've got a file menu that brings us back to our files. And you can see here's Tech Topic right away. Here's the slide presentation I used to kick off the class. And we've got the ability to go New, Open, get information on it, print it, share it. I can export it as a JPEG. I can save a copy if I want to. I can close it if I want to. And there's my templates again if I want to access them. There's a menu here that we can look at, and we will view this. Now, Microsoft's changing their menu options more, so they don't always put the full ribbon up until you need to access it. And so they're trying to simplify the ribbon a lot because it is extremely dense with information. So your home tab is the primary one you would typically work on. So you would be able to access things like importing a new slide or adding a new slide, change your layout. I don't have any text selected, but as soon as I select text, it gives me the ability to access the font. And you can actually right click and even modify fonts with a right click option. Right click is very context sensitive and really useful here in PowerPoint. So you can see now my font selected. I can change formatting of the paragraph. I can insert shapes. We'll talk a little bit about a range and some quick styles. You can dictate text. You can do add-ins, and there's designer. Now, I thought a good slide presentation today would be to start to do some things about Asturias in Spain. And, my recent trip. I have a blank slide here. I'm going to add a new slide with a layout here, and I can choose a layout that is, these are standard layouts, a title slide, exactly like I did, title and content, which gives me the ability to put bullets, shapes, graphics, design. I can create section headers. If you have a longer presentation, you might want to do that, but they also have side-by-side areas, blank, pictures with captions. So if I just take something like a title and content, you can see how it changed the layout format. So I'd go back to home and I can change the layout and I can just go back to title slide. So you can see how some simple things can do that. I'm going to insert things in here. So I can insert a new slide, and it created a slide for me. Now this is a very simple template. So I'm going to see, where is Asturias? Asturias is in Spain. So I have some options here. I can double tap to add text, but I can also click on insert image or other types of items here if I want to. One of the things I did was I set up a map, and on the insert screen, insert tab in PowerPoint, you can insert a screenshot directly from PowerPoint. So I'm going to see if I can take a screenshot and do a screen clipping here. I'm going to bring up a Edge browser here, and I'll type in Asturias, and we'll see if we can bring up a map here. Here's a map of Asturias. Now, I have this window open. So if I go to Insert here, and I go to Screenshot, it actually brings up the active window here, and I can clip this, and it just brings it right into my PowerPoint presentation. So you don't have to use a separate screen clipping tool. Now, this doesn't look great. I probably want to edit this a little bit. So I can go to my home screen, and I can click on the picture here, and I can view some things with it. I can design it. I can change it a little bit. I can modify some of the image aspects of it as well. So if I want to go to this image here, click on Insert, and I should be able to find a tool that lets me crop it here. When you don't know where something is in PowerPoint, one of the easiest things to do is to ask for help in PowerPoint. And so if I want to find crop, it'll show me the crop tools, and it'll bring it right up typically. So there's my crop tools. One of the great things about PowerPoint is you can't find where something is, you can search for it. Now I can grab my handles on this crop tool, and I can bring the window down. You see and so I can drag these down, move them over a little bit, and then I have my crop, and I can just hit the return key and it'll accept that crop. And now I have a different image that's created. And it shows it nicely. Here's where Asturias is in this part of Spain. And it shows me a little bit of a map of the Asturias. It's a province of Spain. So that's another way you can work with PowerPoint, is to just do screen clippings. Now, if I want to add another slide, I can insert a new slide, and I can just do a blank one here. Now, when you have a blank slide, there's literally nothing there to work with, so that when you want to be able to work with other things that you might want to have available, we can do it. Now I'm going to change I have different views I can create. So I have a way I can create an outline view, a normal view, reading view, slide masters. Those are a lot of different options. I can record my presentation. I can set up my slideshow, so when I actually present it, it's done in a way. We'll take a look at animations and transitions, in addition to some of the tools here that we can create. I'm going to change my layout. I don't like this blank layout, so I can just go to layout and I can change it to a title and content. And we'll just type something in. So Asturias and Gijón, okay? So if I want to tap, I can start typing thing. Gijón is a city in Asturias. And I can say Gijón is on the Atlantic Ocean, and Gijón has a population of about 300,000. Okay. We've got a pretty dull slide here. Okay, so this is where you get a lot of text, a lot of typing. And so one of the tools that exists in PowerPoint, if you click on the Home tab, you can go all the way over to something called Designer. This opens the Designer pane. And in the Designer pane, you'll start to see suggestions for different types of formats for a slide. So some of them use images that it pulls, it thinks. Some of them uses things like, here's an ocean shot. So we can just click on this and it'll automatically change the format of the slide. If I had text and bullets and I wanted to put them in blocks, I could change it to this. So it uses a AI tool to kind of sense what you're looking at and create different points, or I could just create something fairly simple like this, and I can just go through and select them and choose one. So it's a way to create a quick design, a quick variety without having to learn a lot about templates and layout and other organizations. They'll take, since it's taking text from the slide and it's using some of that information to help come up with a design where I mentioned it's a city, it's on the Atlantic, and other information like that. So it gives the ability to do those types of things and create a format that is different. And there's many, many more design ideas that are available. So you can create something like this. Now, if I go back to the Where is Asturias, you'll see there's new design ideas that have been generated. So I can click on something like this and it creates a little formatting for the slide for me quickly with just a click of a button without any real effort that I might need to modify in any way whatsoever. So those are some tools that are available that you can utilize when you have Designer that's available to you. One of the other tools, we talked about inserting some images. So I'm going to insert a new slide, and I'll do something with a title only. Okay, so I'll say shapes and diagrams. Okay. So one of the things you can do with PowerPoint is you can insert a lot of things. You saw me take a screenshot. There are stock image libraries that are available, and there are many shapes and icons and other things called smart art that are available. Let's take a look at some shapes. These are commonly used shapes. So if I want to take a block, a rectangle here, I can draw a rectangle. Now the color scheme and the formatting are taken from the template. So when you use different templates, you may see different types of information. I'm going to insert an arrow here. Okay, and I'm going to take an arrow and I'm going to draw an arrow this way. Now I can modify this arrow by clicking on Shape Format. So if I want the arrow to be a different thickness, I have a lot of options here that I can select, and you can see how you can just scroll over these designs and it will automatically format that for you. You can change the thickness of the arrow, you can change the width of the arrow to change the dimensions here, change how it's laid out, and modify virtually anything you might want to do about that arrow. Okay, let's insert another shape. Okay, if I go to another shape here, and I can choose a thicker arrow like this, that changes a thicker arrow. Now, PowerPoint puts these objects on a blank sheet of paper, and you have the ability to grab them with your cursor. And when your cursor changes to 4 arrows, you can move these around. You also have the ability to change the orientation when you grab this spinning handle up here. And so you can change which way the arrow is pointing and what direction it's pointing in as well by utilizing that. You have the ability to right-click on the item, and that's one of the easiest ways to change the color. The standard colors will be from the template, but you have the ability to apply many different types of colors if you want to. And so you can create different diagrams. So I'm going to insert another shape here as well. I'll insert an icon, and Microsoft has a tremendously rich library of icons. So if I wanted to look for something like a camera icon, I have to type it. I have a couple of different icons that I can use. And if I click on this, it'll insert the graphic here. I can position it, but I can resize it if I want to. And by right-clicking on it, I can change the fill color to something a little bit different that I want to. So I can layer objects on top of each other as well. So I can hide things underneath. As you can see, as I slide this green arrow behind the camera, it hides, but it's on top of the blue box. Okay, so let me pull in another shape. Let me insert another icon here, and let's try something I do. Let's take a clock here and put a clock on here. Okay, so you can use these icons, and I'm not doing anything particularly fancy on layout, but I just want to change some of these options and other things. And there's a style option here. Styles are some standard resources here that give you the ability to use gradients, outlines, and other effects as well. The stock art that you see when I use insert, shapes, icons, pictures, they're all available in Word as well, and your options are available in terms of how you want to diagram it are available in Word as well. It's very consistent between Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. I'm going to move a few things around here. I'm going to cover up this. I want to make this camera really big, but I said, gosh, I'd like to get this arrow pointing to something. Maybe I put a shape here. I want to insert a little dot here that tells me a circle shape here that tells me where the shutter button is that somebody should press. I'm going to change it to a black color here. And I say, gee, it'd be nice if that arrow pointed to that. And it'd be nice if I'm going to put this down here as a base. You should hold your camera on a flat surface, right? But this arrow is behind the camera. So one of the things you can do from the home screen is you have the ability, each of these shapes is on a layer in PowerPoint. And you can manually select a shape and right-click it and send it to the back or position it to the front or move it. It's called, where you want to position it, where you want to have it, where you want to arrange it, bring to front, send to back. But there's also a nice little tool in PowerPoint called Arrange. Arrange gives you the ability to look at different objects in different ways. And if I click on Arrange, you can see I've got this function called Reorder Objects. It's on a Mac, but it's not on Windows. So I can actually take this and I can actually move objects and change them from one layer to another and reposition them manually. So if I want this arrow to be on the top, I can move the arrow to the top. There's a little bit more work, but if you can move an object and you can rearrange them if you want to by arranging them, and you can bring it to the front, you can send it to the back, you can bring it forward one step at a time, or send it backwards. So it's kind of a neat feature. There are some quick styles that are available. So if you want to format a shape and use something like a gradient fill, there are quick styles that are available. So you have lots of options for filling different things in. And I can move these objects around. This object is not in front, so I need to right click on it. And I want to bring it to the front. Now it is on top. So I just have to manually do each object in Windows as opposed to on the Mac, which gives me that visual pain. Okay, so some things you can do with objects. Now, I have not turned on Designer. If I turn on Designer for this, I don't know what it'll do, to be honest, but it might do some interesting things. So here's kind of changing where the title is, the format, moving things around a little bit for me, applying different tools to it as well. Now, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this slide, and I'm going to eliminate the clock here and this blue object. And I'm going to move this, I'm going to change the order in them just by dragging them and rearranging the order. So now I've got this one, and I'm going to get rid of this arrow here. It doesn't really help me out very much. And now I have this one. So I could say this is a slide where I want to build from this one to this one, and I can just go from one to the other, but I can apply a transition. And transitions control how you advance from one slide to another. So if I take this one and I insert a transition, I think it's done this way, I can transition from one slide to another, and I can preview how it'll look. So you can see how the transition works. I'm going to transition with this one and do a morph as well. I want to show the slide as additive. So if I look at the transitions now and I go and I want to preview this transition, I can go to transitions and preview it. And you can see how even the slide moves from one to the other. When you actually play this as a slideshow, we'll play this out. We'll go back to the beginning. You can see one slide, and I just click on the advance and it goes from another slide. And when I use the morph, actually gives it a blended view from one thing to one slide to another, which is great for when you have text and maybe you're putting in lines of text and you want to show each line of text one at a time. So it gives you the ability to do things. There's other transitions as well. You have push, wipe, reveal, cut, random bars. A wipe transition is kind of nice to be able to use. It gives you an effect here that you might want to use, but if you use morph here, we're going to select this transition here and give it a fade. So you can see how it can fade out from one slide to another and fade in automatically. Gives you a little bit of animation and motion when you're actually doing your slides. So you can actually even set up a photo, show for people and show them different photos and just use animations to move from one slide to the next that would give people the effect that you're showing a slideshow with some motion on it. So if we take a slide, let's try, text animation, and we'll try, okay, line 1 for a sample, line 2 for a sample, line 3 is about a new topic, line 4 is about an old topic. What I can do is I can right click and duplicate the slide. In this one above, I would say I would eliminate line 4. So this one has 3 lines on it. This one has 4 lines on it. That's one way to do it. And by adding a transition, a morph or wipe or whatever, let's take a morph. And then you can see how it previews. It's going to morph into another slide. But there's another way you can do it as well. If I have 4 lines, I'm going to remove this transition and say none. Okay, I have 4 lines of text. I can animate this. One of the things I can do is I can select a line of text and click on animate, and I can say fly in. So you can see how it flies in. And each animation would be based on a mouse click. Here's another animation. I can say wipe, and I can apply another animation, and I can say spin or split. So now when I preview this, you can see how they'll preview. They come in different formats. And so animations and transitions are a way to add motion to your slide in terms of being able to apply it. Now, what it'll tell you in animations is you have a whole lot of selections. You've got a tremendous number of options. These are all the animations that you can create. You can actually move an object in a path on a screen if you want to, but these are just entrance or emphasis. So if I wanted to apply, let's create another line of text here and more emphasis, okay? And I can apply this animation. I can pick more of these animations like color pulse, and it'll flash before it ends up, or spin. And you can see how it spins around, or grow and shrink, where it just grows and then it shrinks back to size. So these are all options that are available for you to apply to individual items, and you can apply them to objects as well. So if I have an object here and I want this object to appear as a fly-in, you can see how I can set it up to fly in. So when I play the slide and I click on the mouse, that arrow will fly into place, as opposed to using a morph transition. So morph transitions and animations give you motion in your slides. And here's our problem. When we show static slides to people, their eyes get bored. If you're on screen, that's helpful. But when people are looking at ideas and concepts and text and other things, their eyes get bored. We're used to video. Our eyes are meant to look at video. And so we want to be able to look at things as though we are actually engaging with them and utilizing them in a fashion that entertains our eyes. So if I play this slide and I click on my mouse, each time I click on my mouse, we'll see something happen in the text because I applied an animation to each line of text. Now, it's not going to necessarily make your text more interesting, but it's another way to do it. We can go to Home and we can apply Designer. I don't know if Designer will eliminate the animations or not, but it might. And so we'll have to see if it does. I don't think it will. So we can try playing this back and see it kept the animation. So another way to enhance your slide if you want to. Slides generally work better if you can illustrate something with a picture than if you have a text. So if I can say, where's Asturias? I could have described it, but having an image like this gives me the ability to give people another way of looking at it. And I could create a very elaborate type of animation where if I wanted it to swivel in, you can see how that map swivels and finally comes to a stop. So animations, transitions give you the ability to give people some motion that can help. Now, you don't want to go overboard on it. I mean, if you had animations on everything on your slide and transitions on everything your slide, it would be kind of difficult to deal with. But if I wanted to look at, say, a slide that I wanted to work with here, where I'm showing some objects, I could take these objects and animate it to fade in. So you can see how it fades in. I can take another one and I can animate that and fade in. It's best to use similar animations. So when I want to play this slide, I can say, okay, local apps are offline. And on your device, you would have the software app on your device, and you would have the data associated with app on your device. And so by just using a few simple animation tools, you can give yourself the ability to really make a presentation a lot more involved, engaging, and elaborate. And even with some simple text, just animating the text gives you a tremendous capability with that. So arranging objects, you can actually put an object in, or one of the things that Microsoft PowerPoint has is if you got a simple slide like this, there's a tool, Smart Art. I can select this text here, for example, and I can go to Insert, and I can go to something called Smart Art. And Smart Art will give me the ability to put things in a list or process. These are tremendous types of shapes and diagrams that are already created for me. And I can reformat and change things and create and insert blocks if I want to for different text. That's what your designer tool is actually doing. When you use Designer and you go to the Designer tool here, it's taking advantage of Microsoft's knowledge of some smart art sometimes and creating these shapes. So instead of just having 3 lines of text, it's creating 3 blocks of information. But smart art is even more sophisticated. I'm going to insert a new slide. And if we go to here and we look at Insert and we look at Smart Art, I wanted to show you there's a basic block list. There's a set different formats of lists that are available. There's processes. So if you're showing things in a step-by-step format, you can show them. You can show cycles, hierarchy. These are a lot of times they're business oriented, but they are very useful approaches for formatting different types of things. Okay, so one of the things that let's see if I can get this working here. I created a file of images, and I'm going to try and drag a few images here on my screen. These are some pictures of Asturias that I'm going to show you here. And if I put a couple of pictures here of Asturias and Cabuenes and a few others, and I'm just dragging these from my files onto the screen here. What I can do is I can go to my home and go to Designer. And if I'm lucky, it'll create a layout for me. So it did it pretty nicely. Okay, so it created a layout for me. and I can say some scenes from my walks. It created a format of those images for me and laid them out automatically. So it's a great way for creating some different layouts if you want to, and experiment. You can select an object and delete it if you want to, and that'll remove it and change some of the options you'll see. You can get a little more elaborate views here. Sometimes it'll bring in an animation automatically. This one has a little star that shows up that shows that it has an animation. So it's actually animating the text automatically that shows up when you're looking at a slide. So Designer's just a great tool for coming up with really fascinating types of things that make it work really, really easily. So obviously, we've only touched a few things on the menu here. We've touched a few things about inserting objects and shapes for diagramming. I find PowerPoint a really effective diagramming tool because you can move shapes around, you can reposition them in a lot of ways, but there are so many options that are available. I just wanted to basically cover a few of these. And when you go to play your slideshow, it'll give you, the ability to go through everything as you want to. With transitions and other effects, it's better to stay with a consistent style of animation or a consistent style. Don't use more than one or two different styles in a presentation because it can distract from your content. And one of the principles of making a good PowerPoint presentation is to try and only explain one thing on a slide at a time. I use the help function a lot. Tell me is great. So if I say speaker notes, show hide notes pane, that brings it up and gives you the ability to show the notes pane below. PowerPoint has a dozen other options that are available for you to be able to do things with that we haven't even touched on. Thank you everybody for coming today.